Welcome to the ninth part of the story. If you haven't watched previous parts of the story, please follow the link in the right-hand top corner of the screen to go to it and then return to this video. It will absolutely worth it. Subscribe not to miss next parts and other stories on the channel. This long update is split in two parts. This video has the first part of the update. Let's dive into the story. Update.
A few weeks ago, I signed into this throwaway account for the first time in almost a year. There were many messages and comments inquiring about how the kids and I are doing or how things turned out. A very large part of me wanted to ignore them all, sign out, and never log in again. Because I have managed to get back on course with my life and my children's life, and dwelling on the past only hinders forward progress. But the advice I got from Reddit was supportive and helpful from the start, all the way through several episodes in my life when I was at my lowest points. For those people that assisted me so well and showed me such kindness, I will make this final update. Because I do owe a huge thank you to the many who helped me navigate the minefield I didn't yet know I was living in. It's been so long since my last update, most readers will have completely forgotten my posts, which is totally understandable. This will be a long read, and for that I do apologize. But much time has passed, and many events have occurred, to the point where this can't be explained in 2 or 3 paragraphs. Because things have now been finalized beyond what I ever imagined or intended. When I last posted, my soon-to-be ex-wife Mari had been kicked out of her parents' house for neglecting to tell them I am not the biological father of our daughter Carrie. I had informed them I'd caught their daughter cheating the same morning I told them about our wreck. However, she had not revealed to them that the guy I caught her with was just one in a long line of men with whom she cheated. Mari had been forced to live in her car because she had nowhere else to go after being disowned. Meanwhile, I was in the process of attempting to legally adopt Carrie, after having the court adjudicate I am not her biological father. And my attorney Nadia was attempting to get Mari to see a mental health professional of her choosing, in the hopes it might benefit me. Nadia recommended 2 local psychiatric practices to Mary's lawyer, saying we'd pay for her sessions, or she could choose any other therapist she wished to see. I had some major misgivings about having to pay for the sessions or doing anything that might actually benefit Mari. If you learn nothing else from my experience, take this advice to heart: love them or hate them, always listen to your lawyer. To make a long story short, Mari chose a local psychiatrist who instantly recognized she was mentally unstable. For her own well-being, she committed Mari to the local hospital's psyche ward overnight for observation. That overnight stay became many months under psychiatric care in hospitals. Due to confidentiality rules within the medical field, I never heard her actual diagnosis. But her attorney said each time he saw Mari she was heavily sedated and out of it. Those initial months she spent trying on designer straitjackets delayed the finalization of the divorce and child custody hearings. However, since Mari was not contesting and her counsel could stand in as her representation, there was no delay in my attempt to adopt Carrie. As sad as everything had recently been for me in my life, hearing that judge question Carrie and listening to her responses made me so unbelievably happy. Carrie didn't know she had ever been declared not my daughter by the court at my behest. So, it seemed funny to her for the judge to ask if she wanted me to be her daddy. I was so proud of her, though she couldn't understand why. She was just happy when I told her I loved her as she hugged me as her adopted father for the first time. I was glad Michael was also there, but even more grateful Mari wasn't. Neither Michael nor Carrie really had any understanding of what the hearing was about. But Carrie is now legally my daughter, even if we share no DNA. When I saw Mari cheating, it instantly removed all love I ever had for her. Until I was able to reunite with Carrie, I was so afraid that because of what her mother did, I would lose all love for her as well, or resent her. To still feel that love I always had for her again was such a relief. I would not have been in the wrong if I couldn't get past that, no matter what anyone wants to say. If paternity matters enough to the legal system to force a man to pay for a child that is his, it also matters enough for a man to not be able to accept a child that isn't. But screw it, I really needed Carrie in my life. I'd lost too much already, and she needed a dad who had already loved her for her entire lifetime. If I'm honest, there will always be a tiny part of my soul that will remain broken because she is not my biological daughter. I cannot put into words how devastating that was to find out and accept. I know I am doing the very best I can as a parent in this situation. I believe time given to children and love is far more important than anything any parent could buy them. So will always be my focus. Other than Mary's mental issues, there was truly no reason for the divorce not to be finalized. She wasn't getting a penny from me, and even her own lawyer admitted that in her situation, she had no hope of getting any custody at that time. If and when she got out of her padded cell paradise, if she found a safe place to live, she could petition the court to gain some type of visitation and/or custody. The court appointed a legal aid to vouch for Mari being cognizant of what she was doing. Her lawyer got her to sign the divorce papers with witnesses and had them notarized. I had to show up in court with Nadia a week later for attorneys to get the judge to finalize some issues. 2 weeks later, I was legally divorced from the biggest mistake and waste of my life. I should have been happy about that, and I was. Signing the papers was the symbolic nail in the coffin to our marriage. Yet it all felt anticlimactic somehow. It amazed me how well Mary's family stuck to their guns in regard to disowning her after they found out everything she'd done. I'm sure some of that was due to wanting to stay on my good side, so they could visit with the kids. Even though her parents and sister knew she was in the psyche ward, they never even attempted a visit, nor did I, obviously. But it was apparent from the times I talked to her parents how disgusted they were by their daughter's depravity. They were embarrassed for people to know what a tramp their daughter had been. I could empathize and sympathize. Knowing Mari had been run through more times than an oscillating lawn sprinkler in July made me ashamed to admit I had ever been intimate with her. Mandy made sure to let everyone know what her sister and Rebecca had been doing, short of paternity fraud, of course. Between social media and face-to-face conversations with friends, word got out about their exploits. Within a month, nearly everybody knew about her years of cheating and sexual immorality, and they all made plans to give her hell if they ever encountered her again. It was slightly humiliating for me having everyone know how foolishly trusting I had been. At the end of the day, in a relationship you either trust or you don't, and she'd never given me a single reason not to trust. It wasn't until a few months before I caught her that I even considered she could ever cheat. In hindsight, a few red flags were missed, but she covered her tracks well. I should have put an end to the girls' nights out, obviously, once her depression subsided, just out of principle. But that night she stayed out all night was the first and only time that had ever happened before. She'd call if she was going to be 15 minutes late, which was extremely rare. I was actually worried, because that was so unlike her, and I wanted to make sure she was safe. I know many people probably think I'm an idiot or blind for not knowing for so long. By keeping things strictly sexual, and limiting the number of encounters with each man, she never developed any trails to follow. She wasn't glued to her phone or protective of it. I never felt the desire to snoop. She portrayed herself to be the beautiful, loving wife and mother. I wasn't the only one who was deceived. Many friends have told me face to face they were shocked to know she was cheating and would have told me if they'd known. They had no idea any more than I did. If Mari had worn a dress with no panties on a windy day, and everyone within 40 feet of her could hear the ocean, that would have been obvious to me and everyone else. But everything she represented herself to be, to everyone, was a total lie. They wanted nothing to do with her, and nobody cared if she was kept in the ward the rest of her life. The only problem with no one having any contact with Mari was that it left us blindsided. Nobody alerted us when they decided to let her out. Laws prevented the hospital from letting us know due to doctor-patient confidentiality. I have no idea if she just convinced the doctors she was okay, or if they just felt like they had done all they could do to help her. But they released her on a Tuesday just before noon. She somehow made her way from the hospital to her car, which was parked at her lawyer's office behind his home. From there, she took her car and drove to the kids' school. When she was informed that she couldn't see or check the kids out of school, she made enough of a scene that the school called me. I told them to call the police and that I would be there as fast as I could. On the way to my car, I called Mandy to let her know her baby sister was no longer using her Airbnb accommodations on Insanity Island. I told her I had no idea if she'd been released or escaped, but I'd find out when I got to the school. She said she'd call her parents, my parents, and Doug to let them know what was going on, and to keep them posted. By the time I got there, 2 cop cars and an ambulance were parked out front with lights flashing. I pulled into a parking spot, got out and headed toward the closest officer. After identifying myself as the ex-husband, he directed me through a side door which ended up being the school cafeteria. I was relieved to learn no one had alerted Michael or Carrie to the drama in the front office, and school had not recessed. The police had Mari seated at a cafeteria table, and she tried to stand when she saw me, demanding to see her children. They kept her from approaching me, and I asked if they had checked with the hospital mental health ward to see if they had released her. The police informed me that while the hospital couldn't release certain information without a warrant, they had released her under her own cognition. Mari started crying and demanded to see her children. I told the cop I had full custody and there was no way in hell they were seeing her in such a frantic emotional state. She yelled at me that she wanted to see her children yet again. I told her to go have her lawyer file paperwork for visitation. But unless I saw an evaluation from some mental health professional telling me otherwise, she was an unfit parent and a manic mother. She said the kids are the only two people alive that still have any love left for her. I told her that was probably true, but they're just kids and they don't know any better. The cop laughed, then managed to regain his composure. She tried to come at me, he held her back. She said she hadn't seen her children in months and that they were the only thing that got her through her time in lobotomy land. I explained I really didn't care about her struggle to cope with the consequences of her own actions. But there was no way in hell I was subjecting our children to her lies and drama that day. I told the cop I wanted to file a restraining order on her to stay the hell away from me and the kids. He agreed to file the initial paperwork on my behest, but that a judge would have to determine if one was needed and sign it. He then explained to Mari since I was not going to allow her to see the kids, they had already talked to the principal of the school. She needed to leave immediately and not come back onto the premises until she could show a court order granting her partial custody. To my surprise, she didn't make an even bigger scene. I guess she realized nothing she could do at that moment would get her what she wanted. She grabbed her purse and keys before being escorted by an officer to her car. She got in and drove away while the other cop and I filled out the R.O. form on his tablet and talked with the principal. Soon enough the kids got out of school, and I loaded up Michael and Carrie to take home. I was about 2 miles from the school when I thought I saw Mary's car pull out from a fast food restaurant just after we passed by. I took the next right, and the next right, and the next right until I was on the same street we'd been on. I could see Mary's car up ahead and sped up to try and figure out what she was doing. She was oblivious to the fact I'd managed to maneuver my way behind her. It was obvious she was looking for someone, and that very person was observing her. The kids didn't even recognize her car ahead of them. Thankfully, a Reddit user had urged me to get front and rear cameras with audio recorders installed in my vehicles. That gave me all the evidence I needed to prove Mari was stalking me and the kids even after being warned by the cops to stay away. I went straight to the police station and showed the magistrate footage of Mari waiting for us to pass by, pulling out and then losing us. She assured me the evidence would be submitted to the case judge, and I should hear I've been granted the restraining order sooner than later. In 2 days while I was at work, I got a call from the police saying the restraining order had been filed and served that morning. They told me she was to stay 200 yards away from me and the children at all times. She was forbidden from contacting me or the kids in any possible way except via her attorney to my attorney. I was directed to immediately call the police if she did anything to break the R.O. I felt some relief that at least I had the law on my side. But I fully expected her to ignore the restraining order by trying to contact me or the kids. To my surprise, nobody heard anything from Mari. Her sister said she had not tried to contact her or her parents. I fully expected her to seek out some type of free legal assistance to file for partial custody, but no one ever contacted Nadia. 2 months went by and honestly the longer we went without hearing from her or about her was a bit unnerving. But about 3 months ago when I got home there was a large manila envelope in the mail. The address was handwritten, and the return address only said Sydney, Australia. The voided stamps were Aussie. I truly couldn't imagine who had sent the envelope or why. But inside was an extremely long letter from Mari explaining where she was and assuring me she wouldn't be coming back. I was stunned when I got the letter, considering the postmark from so far away, and who it was from. The things she said in the letter probably left me even more astounded by her evil hedonistic rationale that allowed her to sleep at night.
Want to know what was in this letter? Subscribe not to miss the next upload tomorrow for the final episode of this story. How will it end? Do not miss it tomorrow.